Have you ever just looked at the world and wondered, why are some countries so incredibly wealthy while others really struggle? It's one of the biggest, most fundamental questions in economics, and today we're going to break it down using a surprisingly simple idea, an economy's recipe. I mean, really think about it. Is it just about having oil or diamonds? Is it about history? Or is it something else entirely? Well, it turns out economists have this really elegant framework for answering this, and it all boils down to one powerful concept. So, to really get to the bottom of this, we've got to start with the big picture. We need to understand how an entire country produces, well, everything. The best way to think about it is like a giant nationwide kitchen that's following a very specific recipe. And that recipe is what we're talking about today. In economics, it's got a formal name. It's called a production function. But don't let the fancy term fool you. It's really just the set of instructions that an economy uses to turn its ingredients into wealth. And understanding this recipe is the key to, well, everything. All right, so let's take a closer look at this economic recipe, the production function, and see what's actually in it. So, the production function basically tells us how much total output a country can make. We call that output Y. And you can just think of Y as the country's GDP for the year. It's the finished product, the whole economic pie. And here's what it looks like in its simplest form. Now, I know it looks a little mathy, but trust me, it's not complicated. All it's saying is that your total output, Y, is just a function or, a result of combining your main ingredients, which we call K and L. So what exactly are K and L? Well, let's break down those ingredients. We're going to start with the two big ones, and then we're going to reveal the secret ingredient that honestly changes the whole game. So here they are, our two main ingredients. K stands for capital. We're talking about all the physical stuff, the machines, the factories, the computers, the office buildings, all of it. And L stands for labor. That's pretty straightforward. It's people, the entire workforce. But here's the crucial part. Just having a ton of capital and labor isn't enough. It's like baking, right? You can have the most expensive flour and the freshest eggs, but if you don't know how to combine them, if your technique is bad, you are not getting a delicious cake. The how is what really matters. And in our economic recipe, that technique, that skill, is called TFP, or total factor productivity. This is our secret ingredient. Think of it as technology, innovation, or just plain old efficiency. It's the magic that lets you get more output from the exact same amount of machines and workers. And when we put all of that together, we get the real deal recipe that economists use all the time, the Cobb-Douglas production function. You can see all our parts right there. A for our productivity, K for capital, and L for labor. And those little numbers, the 0.3 and 0.7, they're super important. They basically tell us how much each ingredient contributes to the final dish. Okay, awesome. Now that we have our recipe, we can finally use it to solve that huge mystery we started with. Why is there such a massive wealth gap between countries? Now, to make a fair comparison, right, between a giant country like the US and a smaller one, we can't just look at total output. That wouldn't make sense. We have to look at output per person or per worker. So we just tweak the formula a bit. Now, the lowercase y is output per worker, and lowercase k is capital per worker. But notice what's still right there, front and center, our secret ingredient, A. It's still driving the whole thing. So this leaves us with two big possible explanations for why some countries are rich and others are poor. Is it just that rich countries have more stuff for each worker? More machines, more computers, more infrastructure? Or is it that they have a fundamentally better recipe, that they're just way more efficient and innovative at using the stuff they already have? And when you look at the data, the answer is crystal clear. It's the productivity. Yes, having more capital absolutely helps. But the main reason, the biggest driver of the huge income gaps we see across the globe, isn't just a lack of stuff. It's the massive difference in that secret ingredient, A, the technology, the know-how, the efficiency. So, this recipe is unbelievably powerful, right? And like any good recipe, it follows a couple of key rules that tell us even more about how economies actually tick. These two rules are called constant returns to scale and diminishing marginal product. Now, I know they sound super technical, but the ideas behind them are actually pretty simple. It's just about what happens when you either double your entire kitchen or just add one more tool. Okay, the first rule is really intuitive. Constant returns to scale just means that if you scale up the whole operation, the results scale up perfectly with it. So if you double all your factories and you double all your workers, you get, you guessed it, exactly double the output. Simple as that. Now, the second rule is a little more subtle, but it is so important. It's called diminishing marginal product. This says that if you keep adding more of just one of your ingredients, say you give one single worker more and more machines to use, each new machine you add brings a smaller boost in output than the one before it. And you can see it perfectly on this chart. That very first machine you give a worker, huge impact. It might boost their output by 100. But the second machine only adds an extra 80. The third, even less. That's diminishing returns right there, and it explains why simply throwing more and more capital at a problem isn't always the answer. And if you thought that was cool, get this. Our recipe doesn't just tell us how big the entire economic pie is. It also gives us a shockingly accurate prediction of how that pie gets sliced up and divided among everyone. So if you look at a developed economy like the US, you find something amazing. For decades and decades, the way our national income gets divided has been incredibly stable. About 70% of all the money generated goes to labor. That's wages for workers. And the other 30% goes to capital. That's profits and rent for the owners. And here is the truly wild part. Remember those little numbers in our recipe? Labor was raised to the power of 0.7 and capital was 0.3. Well, that is not a coincidence. The recipe itself predicts this exact 70-30 split. The math of the recipe actually tells us how the pie will be divided. It's just an incredible, powerful insight. So this brings us all the way back to the beginning. We've got the recipe. We know the secret ingredient is this thing called productivity. So that leaves us with the biggest question of all. What actually creates productivity? What makes that A go up? Is it better schools? Is it property rights and the rule of law? Is it scientific breakthroughs? That right there is the multi-trillion-dollar question that this whole recipe helps us finally ask.